Hello and welcome to another Goblin TV tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be focused on extreme weathering some vehicles from the Walking Dead scenery booster pack. As you can see in front of us, the vehicles are heavily weathered with rust, moss, dirt and debris. So what we're going to do is paint these up from start to finish in a very quick manner and using some really simple and easy techniques to do. Okay, this is going to be a long video, so go grab yourselves a nice hot drink or maybe my favourite, an ice cold beer, and we'll get started with the tutorial. I start off by priming the vehicles in front of me using Alclad 2's Lacquer Primer Grey. It's very important to note that you have to be well ventilated and wearing a respirator if using this lacquer, as it's very harmful if inhaled. It's also important to note that with this lacquer it's known as a hot liquid. What that means is that airbrushes with rubber seals will get damaged by this lacquer paint, so make sure you've got a good quality airbrush with PTFE solvent proof seals if using this primer. If you're unable to use Alclad's lacquer primers, then please use Stynel Resi's polyurethane primers, which are much less harmful if inhaled and won't damage rubber seals on normal airbrushes. Now we're going to lay down the base coat of Game Air Imperial Blue from Vallejo. I'm working here at about 20 psi and I'm keeping the airbrush moving at all times, and as you can see I'm just getting a nice smooth even coverage on the vehicle. If I don't get the smooth coverage in the first pass, I'll come back over with a second pass just to get that coverage nice and even. Now we're going to start painting Vallejo Game Air Magic Blue. We're going to be leaving all of the Imperial Blue behind in all of the recesses and anywhere there's a panel line edge, so we're aiming towards the center of each of the panels. Now we're going to create some extreme highlighting using Vallejo Game Air Electric Blue. This is really going to make the paintwork look sun bleached and really age the look of the paintwork on the vehicle. Now we're going to chip the paintwork back to the primer colour, which I believe could be possibly grey. You could use a darker colour here, like a dark brown, but I wanted to chip it back to what I thought the primer underneath the paint would be, being grey. So I'm using Stynyl's Resi's grey primer here, but any light grey paint will work for this chipping effect. What we do, we use some sponge, which you get with most metal miniatures these days, and I'm just removing most of the paint from the sponge, and then I can just lightly touch the surface of the vehicle with a sponge and get some nice organic looking chips. Now we're going to create an all over wash using Winter Streaking Grime by AK Interactive. It's important to note that I thinned down this Winter Streaking Grime as it's too thick for a wash, and I want to create an all over wash so it's almost like a filter but a bit darker than a filter, so we're classing it as a wash. But what it will do, it will subtly change the hue of the vehicle and it will make it look really grubby. Also, the wash will gather in all the extreme recesses, like where the doors meet each other, and it will create some nice shadows. Now we're going to paint the windows. We're going to use Stynyl's Resi's grey primer. Here I'm working really close towards the vehicle, about 1 to 2 inches away, and I'm just pulling a slight amount back on the airbrush trigger. If you're very new to airbrushing and you're worried about getting a lot of overspray on the blue paint work that we've already worked on, then you can easily get some Tamiya masking tape and mask off these areas. I'm not concerned with overspray, as I've been painting for many years, and I'm pretty good at handling. Now we're going to use Vallejo Model Air White. We're going to aim for the centre of the panels of all of the window panes, just to add a bit of a highlight. Now we're going to paint the wheels of the vehicles using Vallejo Game Air Charred Brown. I'm really not worried about overspray here at all, as overspray that goes on the wheel arches or the very bottom of the vehicle will just look like build up of dirt. Now we're going to create some nice rust tones on the vehicles using light orange oxide and medium red oxide. As you can see, I'm concentrating on the wheels here. I used the darker colour of the two rusts at first to lay down the base, and then I add a bit of the lighter rust on top. Here you can see I'm selectively adding rust to the vehicle anywhere I think rust would naturally be occurring on the metal paintwork of the vehicles. Now we're going to seal the pigments in with the Green Stuff World's pigment fixer. The reason we do this is if we don't, the pigments are active on the surface of the vehicle and will rub off onto your fingers. Just to make double sure that the pigments are all sealed in and not active on the surface, we're going to seal them in again, but this time we're going to use Vallejo's Premium Colour Matte Varnish. Now we're going to create some really cool moss effects on the vehicles using wild moss and nature green from the Green Stuff World. You can work with the pigments completely dry if you want to, straight out the pot, or you can have your brush dampened in the pigment fixer, which you can see that I'm doing here. The brush is damp with pigment fixer. Please don't have your brush wet, so what you want to do is apply pigment fixer to your brush, then wick off all of the excess pigment fixer on some paper towel, and then dampened we're going to start from the top of where we've added that pigment and we're going to create streaks. I must reiterate, it's very crucial that the brush isn't wet. If it's completely wet, it will start creating puddles and you won't get nice streaks. The brush has to be dampened, not wet. Lastly, we're going to seal the vehicles in again with some more matte varnish, just to make sure that moss effects that we've just done don't stay active on the surface. And here you can see two different vehicles. You can paint them red, blue, green, any type of colour that you like, guys, for this. Now these cars are from a scenery pack from the Walking Dead game from Mantic, and Goblin Gaming sell the set for just £16. I think it's a wonderful set and highly recommend it for adding scenery to your games and adding a nice bit of narrative to your games. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed this video on Goblin TV, and if you did, please hit the like button, and thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.